Hello, kia ora, g'day. I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube with your Australia-only forecast for the next week ahead. Let's get into the forecast, kicking off with the satellite map and the thunderstorms this morning. Most of the energy in the southeast quarter of Australia, a wee bit coming into Queensland as well, but a lot of that energy really here in the southeast as a cold front comes on through. Some hot weather pushing through New South Wales, and as you're going to see over the week ahead, there's a lot more heat coming through. In fact, a couple of the main things that I'm noticing in the weather maps really across the southern hemisphere, but especially around Australasia, is seeing high pressure zones sinking further southwards. To some degree, that can keep the spring weather pattern alive in the south, but if they start to join up and they become more sideways shaped rather than like a rugby ball lying on the ground flat, rather than one that you're going to kick, when they're sideways, they really bring in dry, average kind of conditions temperature-wise, nothing too big. When they're tall, north to south like a rugby ball that's going to be kicked, that's when you end up with southerlies being dredged up, and there's still a bit of that in the flow, but these highs are drifting southwards, which is more summer-like, and as a result of that, the tropical boundary is coming down to the southern coastline and pushing out into the Tasman Sea, as you're going to see in the days ahead. So let's kick off with the Misery Index today. This is a very simplistic temperature map, great for farmers in particular, but also growers as well, anyone that's really working outdoors. So the dark shaded area, temperate, you won't notice it being hot or cold for the most part, just kind of normal weather. But where the red is stretching out, especially in the south, you'll be feeling the heat, 30 degrees and above in red, 40 degrees and above in yellow. So we're starting to feel the hotter weather of summer moving down and right down to the southern coastlines and right out to the Tasman Sea. At the same time, big storm south of Western Australia. A lot of cold air still just south here of Tasmania. The blue is 0 and below. So you've got a real variety in temperatures on the map at the moment, as you would expect at this time of the year. So as we go through to Saturday's forecast, we'll start with the red line, the tropical boundary. So that is all the tropical air north of that. So hot weather moving right down to South Australia, the southeast corner of Western Australia, but you jump over to the southwest corner of Western Australia, there is the polar boundary coming back in again. So as you go through Saturday afternoon, those of you in the southwest corner will notice the temperatures starting to drop as that colder polar airflow heads your way. Meanwhile, high pressure through Bass Strait brings lighter winds to Tasmania, and for most of the main centres, mainly dry weather as well. Most of the showers over on the west coast. As you come into New South Wales, outside of the ACT, coastal showers, some of those a little heavy as you go further northwards. We could be seeing a few thunderstorms in the northeast corner of New South Wales and just brushing the south to southeast corner of New South Wales. Elsewhere, mainly dry, a couple of coastal showers coming into the far north of Queensland and one or two thunderstorms in the top half of the Northern Territory and around the Kimberley, but again, not a lot of energy in that. As we go to Sunday, zooming out a bit more for you, so we've got a big storm here, 940 hectopascals just south of Tasmania. That is driving in the windy westerlies back again for you. At the same time, the polar boundary here coming in to the southwest corner of Western Australia, so the temperatures will definitely drop on Sunday in that southwest corner. But you jump over to the southeast corner, coming into South Australia, the tropical line pushing right down very close to Adelaide. You'll feel the heat. Whyalla, you'll definitely be noticing it there. But even over here in New South Wales and the ACT and eastern parts of Victoria, see how the winds are kind of being funneled through there as a nor'wester. So that'll lift up your temperatures as well. Northerly winds coming down for the eastern side of Australia. So no matter how you slice it and dice it, it's a pretty warm to hot day for many places on Sunday, and it will get even hotter going into the start of next week. You can see the setup here with the tropical red boundary right down into coastal parts of New South Wales as that all kind of moves eastwards. At the same time, over here in the southwest corner, places like around Albany, getting the polar airflow coming through with a southerly going around the next big high. So different things going on in the south, but I think the thing to keep a close eye on are those of you in Victoria and parts of South Australia. We've got a line of convergence forming in here, kind of trapped between the tropical heat to the north and the polar air moving in from the southwest. May well see that line of rain get heavier, and we did talk about that the other day. So we'll go to Tuesday here. Remember, these are 24-hour rain maps, basically taken in the early afternoon for those of you over here on the eastern side, and late morning for those of you on the very western side. So what you're seeing is basically from lunchtime Monday to lunchtime Tuesday, rainfall totals that could be 30 or 40 millimetres, which would be very welcome for a number of areas in the southeast corner of South Australia and over here into Victoria. Note though that the top half of Victoria is dry, and as you go into New South Wales, not only is it the tropical boundary pushing right out into the Tasman Sea, but it's a windy nor'wester around places like Sydney, coming over the Great Dividing Range and pushing your temperatures up potentially into the mid-30s. Western parts of Sydney could be over 35 degrees as we go around sort of Monday, Tuesday of next week. So everybody and pretty much everyone in Queensland and a large part of New South Wales feeling that heat. But as you drop down to Victoria, Tasmania, that colder airflow is coming through. And in fact, South Australia full of southerly winds coming out of the Southern Ocean. So colder for you, and then hotter a little further northward. So it is a messy pattern going through next week. And by Wednesday, as our next high drifts along into the Great Australian Bight, the colder change on the right-hand side of it, the eastern side of it, is pushing through, bringing perhaps more widespread wet weather across Victoria and spilling over better into southern parts of New South Wales, including Canberra as well. So the southerlies push up to about Brisbane, but Brisbane's still in the heat. There's a small area of low pressure forming right over the top of Brisbane, and all that does is it just keeps that tropical air being pulled down over you while that southerly moves in. Between the two, thunderstorms are probably quite likely as that change all moves apart and the polar boundary smack bang over the top of Tasmania again. But as I just said at the start, things are dropping southward. So that polar boundary doesn't roar up into Victoria or New South Wales. It briefly comes up to the halfway mark of Tassie before it drops back down again. And that's what happens here on Thursday, already south of Hobart. We've got a few isolated showers along the eastern coastline. The winds are still mostly, again, coming out of the north, so they'll lift back up after dropping briefly. And then you see more thunderstorms and downpours forming in central, slightly western parts of Australia. So around Uluru, Ayers Rock, Alice Springs, those places could be seeing thunderstorms coming in, and those could drop right down to the southern coastline of Western Australia. And that takes us to our weather map a week from today with a low over South Australia, bringing a lot of instability as it drags down that tropical airflow, and the polar boundary is not that far offshore. So that can produce thunderstorms and instability. Based on this map, a cooler southerly coming in for much of Western Australia, at least the southern half of it, obviously tropical heat up here in Broome and other northern areas. And you jump over to the southeast corner of Australia, the other big high is offshore as well. So there's no high pressure belt over the top of you. That means northerly winds coming down the eastern side, southerly winds or southeasterly winds coming up the southwestern side. And in the middle, those are the showers and thunderstorms that we're seeing around. Let's make sense of that. Here is the 7-day rainfall map. You can try and get your bearings on the rainfall. Notice the rain that pushes out here with that convergence zone. So there's a chance of some good rain coming for those that need it, but there's also a fine line between it and not getting anything at all, maybe in some parts of New South Wales and Queensland. It's leaning the right way, but if you're in the southeast corner wanting rain, you don't really want to be seeing the pale blue at 0.2 millimetres for 24 hours. So it's not 100% all locked in that you'll get the rain you need, but there's some good chances of it. Before I go, the place of the day today, Phillip Island, Victoria, has to be the best named island in Australia, of course, although I'd prefer it if it had one L, but I'm all right with that. Population, 13,000, nearly 14,000, swells to 60,000 during summer, 125 kilometres south-southeast of Melbourne. And I'm showing you this because of the Phillip Island circuit. The Motorcycle Grand Prix is on this weekend, and Sunday's weather, a high of 24, a low of 14, chance of a shower or two. Keep up to date with that. It could move around a wee bit more. And I think that's me. All right, that's all from me for this week. Thank you for joining us. Apologies we didn't have a video yesterday. I've been a bit sick this week with a cold or something. Seem to be much better now, thank you, and appreciate all the kind comments on YouTube. Have a great weekend. I'll see you again next week.